In the heart of New York City, a woman walked quietly through a luxury boutique. But this wasn't just any woman. It was Melania Trump. And that day, a store manager, unaware of who she was, made a mistake he would never forget. She said nothing. She didn't argue. But within minutes, the front door opened again, and Donald Trump walked in. What happened next became a moment the entire world would talk about. It was a crisp January afternoon in New York City. The streets of Fifth Avenue bustled with designer coats, clacking heels, and the usual hum of hurried shoppers. Among the crowd, a tall, elegant woman stepped into a high-end jewelry boutique. No one paid attention at first. The store staff were engaged in their routines, and she walked in without entourage or flash. But her presence changed the air. Without a word, Melania Trump had entered. She wore a cream-colored wool coat, her hair pulled back in a tidy bun, and minimal makeup. Her steps were slow, composed. Not trying to be noticed, but impossible to ignore. There was something in her demeanor. Calm. Measured. Royal even. The boutique was silent save for the soft classical music playing overhead. Gleaming display cases reflected the crystal chandeliers above, and the scent of expensive cologne hung faintly in the air. It was the kind of place where everything whispered exclusivity. The manager noticed her but didn't recognize her, or perhaps pretended not to. He approached with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ma'am," he said, tilting his head, "if you're looking for something within a more accessible price range, we do have some pieces in the back. Just let me know." The tone was polite, but hollow, coated with a layer of judgment. Melania looked at him. Just looked. No surprise, no anger. Just a pause. Long enough to make him blink. Then, she offered a gentle smile and turned her gaze to the display case without saying a word. She moved through the store gracefully, her fingers never touching the glass, her heels making barely a sound on the polished floor. Behind her, whispers began. "Who is she? I think I've seen her somewhere." But the manager wasn't interested in guessing. He'd already decided she didn't belong. Melania walked the length of the boutique, pausing only once, in front of a diamond-studded timepiece. She tilted her head, examined it quietly, then nodded subtly. Then, just as silently as she had arrived, she turned and left. No purchase. No complaint. No confrontation. Outside, the doorman held the door for her, oblivious. On the sidewalk, she pulled out her phone and made a single brief call. Inside, the staff chuckled, unaware that they had just insulted the former First Lady of the United States. But Melania didn't need to tell them. Because she wasn't the type to raise her voice. She knew what was coming next would say more than she ever could. Roughly 20 minutes had passed since Melania Trump stepped out of the boutique without a word. She hadn't raised her voice, hadn't shown anger, hadn't even asked for a manager. But she had made one phone call. Inside, the store staff had returned to their routine, though whispers still lingered. A saleswoman was Googling something behind the counter. The manager scoffed and said loud enough for others to hear, wasting time on window shoppers. Then things shifted. First came the sound of engines. 3 black SUVs rolled up outside the boutique. Their arrival was quiet, but commanding, the way a storm doesn't have to be loud to be dangerous. A few pedestrians stopped. Phones came out. And then the doors opened again. Donald Trump walked in. Flanked by Secret Service agents, he didn't acknowledge anyone. His presence filled the room like thunder without sound. He walked straight toward the same display case Melania had paused at earlier, the diamond-studded timepiece still gleaming under the lights. He pointed at it. "That one. My wife liked it." He didn't look around. Didn't wait for help. The same manager who had dismissed Melania now scrambled toward him, nervous and pale. "Of course, sir, right away," he stammered. Donald didn't even make eye contact. He waited in silence while the item was packed. Then, just as he was about to hand over his card, he turned. His voice low but echoing with controlled intensity. "You know," he began, "when you don't recognize someone, how you treat them says everything about who you are. My wife didn't need to be known to deserve respect. No one does." The room froze. The manager stood stiff, a thin sheen of sweat on his forehead. The sales staff looked down. A couple of shoppers awkwardly stepped back. Donald continued. "She didn't complain. She didn't yell. She just walked out, because she's stronger than this place deserves. He took the receipt, nodded and walked out, leaving a silence heavier than his words. The moment was caught on camera. Someone from the street had filmed it through the boutique window. Within minutes, it was on social media. Within hours, it had gone viral. But Melania? She never said a word. She didn't need to. By the next morning, the video had taken over social media. Clips of Donald Trump's calm but piercing words inside the boutique were everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Hashtags like #SilentPower, #Melania Trump, and #RespectEveryone were trending globally. News headlines read, "Trump family turns luxury boutique into a life lesson and Melania's silence speaks volumes." Comment sections exploded. She didn't even need to say a word. That's real power. The way Donald stood up for her. Respect. What a lesson in humility. Never judge by appearances. And in the middle of all this noise, Melania remained silent. She didn't tweet. She didn't issue a statement. She didn't call out the store, the manager, or the situation. Because she didn't have to. The lesson had already been delivered. Inside the boutique, things changed fast. The manager, the same man who had suggested she check the affordable section, was removed from his position by the end of the week. The boutique's PR team scrambled to release a public apology, citing unintentional behavior that does not reflect our brand values. But for many, the damage was already done. And not just to the store's reputation. To those who witnessed the moment, in person or online, it became something deeper. A reminder of how we see people. How quick we are to judge based on clothing, quietness, or perceived importance. One simple interaction had peeled back the curtain on arrogance, bias, and what real strength looks like. Because Melania Trump had done nothing loud. She hadn't posted a thread. She hadn't demanded justice. She had simply walked away. And yet, her silence shook an entire industry. In a time when most people screamed to be heard, she whispered and the world leaned in to listen. It wasn't just about her status. It wasn't even about Donald's intervention. It was about dignity. About restraint. About knowing your worth even when others don't recognize it. That day, the boutique's glass cases still gleamed, and the chandeliers still sparkled. But something had shifted in the atmosphere. Some say respect is earned. Others say it's given. But Melania Trump showed the world one simple truth. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say absolutely nothing at all. What you've just watched wasn't just a story about Melania Trump's experience or Donald Trump stepping in to make a statement. This video was meant to remind us of something deeper. Respect should never be earned through fame or appearance. Respect is a basic human right. And how someone treats you when they don't know who you are says more about them than it does about you. Melania Trump didn't raise her voice. She didn't announce her name. She didn't call out the disrespect she was shown. She remained silent. But that silence? It was powerful enough to reach millions. Because sometimes saying nothing says everything. Donald Trump's unexpected arrival wasn't just a husband defending his wife. It was a moment that spoke for everyone who's ever been overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed in silence. It wasn't staged. It wasn't rehearsed. It was real. And it was unforgettable. This story goes far beyond the walls of that boutique. It speaks to all of us. How many times have you been judged by how you looked, what you wore, or how quietly you stood? How often have you chosen silence over confrontation, dignity over shouting back? That's what makes this story powerful. Because it wasn't just about jewelry or customer service, it was about prejudice, pride, and the quiet strength of grace. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks away and lets the world figure it out. So now we ask you, what would you have done in that moment? Would you have stayed silent or spoken up? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your perspective in the comments below. And if this story moved you, made you reflect, or reminded you of something from your own life, please hit the like button. If you want more stories like this, real, emotional, and unforgettable, subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a story that matters. Here, we don't just chase headlines. We tell stories about real people, quiet moments, and unseen strength. Because sometimes, the most powerful changes in life begin with a look, a pause, or a silence that echoes louder than any words.